Hello everybody and welcome back, and in this tutorial we will cover some of the basic terms that you need to know in order to understand better the things that we will cover in the web penetration testing section. So let me just open here LeafPad and enlarge it a little bit. So first thing I want you to know is basically some of the most basic terms, which is for example HTTP. Now, we already covered what it is in the basic networking terms and basic ethical hacking terms, but here we need to cover it a little bit more in details. So, HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol. It is basically used on all of your website pages. As you can see, if we open up any page, you will either have an HTTP or HTTPS right here. And as we already said before, the difference between these two is that HTTPS uses SSL or TLS encryption in order to protect your files from anyone trying to interfere with your internet connection. So basically, if this was an HTTP website without the S, anyone that is putting himself in the middle between me and this website can basically read all of my information. For example, if there was a login page right here, as we can see login right here, and if I type here my username and password, he could get them in plain text. While as with the SSL and TLS encryption, all my data would be encrypted and he wouldn't be able to get anything out of it. So that is another thing that you can check every time you log in somewhere. For example, your Facebook page, your Instagram page, any page basically today shouldn't be HTTP. If you open up a page, for example, for Facebook, and it says right here only HTTP, it is most likely going to be a fake Facebook page and someone is phishing for your credentials. So that is an important thing to know. Also, the next thing I want to tell you about is the HTTP headers. Now, HTTP headers, we will cover them in great detail later on with our Burp Suite tool, but for now on, there are basically two things you need to know, which is what is an HTTP request and what is an HTTP response. We will cover the HTTP request right now, so let me just open up a picture that I downloaded, which is basically request header. It will show you how HTTP header request looks like, and we will cover some of the parts that it shows. So basically, let us just open this picture first. Here it is. This is a typical HTTP header, request header. So let me just enlarge this a little bit so you can see it better. As we can see, there are a few stuff right here that we need to know about. First of all, what is the HTTP request? Well, HTTP request is basically every time you type here google.com on your, for example, Firefox, you just open here and type here google.com, it will perform an HTTP request for this page. Now, what I mean by that is we as clients request a page and the server sends us back the page with the HTTP response. And that page contains the HTML, the HTTP response, and so on and so on. Now, well, basically HTTP requests has some of the options right here that I will explain right now. The GET, as you can see, the GET part right here is a method, HTTP method, which basically references to the website that we tried to search. So if we try to search google.com, right here it would type get google.com, since we tried to get that website. So it is simple as that. You just translate this into English and basically just ask to get that page from the server. The protocol right here, as you can see, which is HTTP 1.1, is just a current version of HTTP, and the path, as we can see right here, is the current path that we searched. So for example, as you can see right here, the path would be /projects/OWASP-BVA. That would be the path if we searched this page. The host would be the server that we search for. So the host will be the name of the website that we typed in our search bar. So in our case right here, sourceforge.net would be the host. The user agent is basically, this is what server uses to identify every client. So we, with the HTTP request, we send to server also some of our own information. For example, what kind of web browser we are using, which in this case is Mozilla 5.0. What is our operating system? In this case it is Windows, and so on and so on. So basically user agent is ourselves with our web browser. Here we can see accept, text and HTML. Basically here we specify as a request what do we accept from the server in return, and we basically accept the HTML page, which is most likely what we are going to get. So let me just show you. The HTML is basically a code that you use to write these websites. You can check out the HTML code of every page with right click on the page and check the source code. Once it opens this up, this is basically an HTML code, which starts with head, body and so on. It has a bunch of things, it's not really that hard to learn, and it is the essentials of every website you visit. So it's good to know that as well. So let us get back to our HTTP request. The accept language, as we can see right here, is basically the language, as it says, English US, accept encoding, gzip, deflate, so we do accept encoding. There are certain attacks that we can use in order to remove this encoding and basically get the file in plain text. Accept charset, which is UTF-8, so keep alive 300, connection keep alive. There are a bunch of these options that we do not really care about, but the one that we do care about is the cookie. Now, what is a cookie? Cookie is basically a temporary value that is used to keep our information about the current session that we are having. So without cookies, the server would after every request forget who we are and wouldn't know what we searched for example before, or what our username and password was, or basically it wouldn't know who are we in the previous request. The cookie is stored on the server, and it basically has all the information about our current session. Now we can see the PHP session ID, and this is basically the cookie itself. It is a random number. It is also one of the main points of the attacks, as we can see if we were, for example, to change this cookie value to something else, we would be logging into a different session, which could be potentially dangerous. Now, there is another option right here in the HTTP request headers that isn't listed right here, and it is the authorization. Now, with this parameter, HTTP enables the identity check of client. So for example, if I log into my router, let me just 192.168.1.1, this little window that will pop up right here, it should pop up any second, here it is basically authorization. So this is how my router checks the identity of me. If I know the username and password, I can log in. If I don't know the username and password, I can't log in. So those are some of the basics of the HTTP request headers. There is also some of the other things you should keep an eye on, which is session tracking with cookies. It is an important one, as I said. Also HTML, you need to know what HTML is, which most likely you do. It is a code that is basically used in order to create websites. As we can see right here, this is HTML code. And that is about it for the HTTP headers, request headers. Now I will also discuss the HTTP response headers, which are similar, but basically HTTP response is, as it says, a response from the server to us. So the HTTP request is what we send to the server, and HTTP response is what server sends back to us. So we will discuss that in the next tutorial, and I hope I see you there.